Hello everybody, happy Memorial Day. My name is Maria and welcome to my channel. I thought I would just do a little vlog and say hello to everyone and maybe share a few items that I've gotten that are really cool, that I think are really needful, and talk a little bit about returning to work after you've been on disability and what my experience has been after being out of the workforce for a long time and then re-entering it, because it really is culture shock. It really is. So I really began working at 13 years old, very old school. I'm 66 years old and I worked weekends at my dad's restaurant. But by the time I was 14, I also took a side job going to what was called Doc's drugstore, and it was a really cool little drugstore where there were clothes, there was all kinds of stuff in there, and they also sold hot cashews and peanuts and almonds and everything. So I was always, and chocolate, so I was always doing that. I always had a side hustle, always. My dad owned a restaurant that he branched out and had several locations, and I worked at all the locations. So he started on Whitten Road, which was the original, and it was pizza and wings and chicken. It was chicken for a while, then pizza and wings, and subs. And I used to be days. In the summertime, I worked days from 14 on. And I believe, actually, when he opened the restaurant, it was just me and him that were in there. And because of the name of the restaurant, I had to wear this little sailor outfit. It was like a little blue sailor outfit because Captain, he was in the Navy, and he was a Navy cook. And so Captain was in the name of his business. So he was really into having us all in these little blue sailor outfits. That changed over the years. So I basically was making subs, and we had a big factory right next door to us that would just be a rush on a big rush. like they would order like 20 tuna subs all at once, or it was just crazy. It was every kind of sub we had. We had French dips, we had steak bombers, we had tuna fit. I loved the French dip. We had an Italian roast beef sub that was really good. We had muffulettas, we had egg salad, we which was a constant peeling of the eggs. And I've never found a really good way to peel fast other than to go to the flat end and get your thumb in there and run them underwater. We were always chopping celery, onions, so it was a lot of prep work. And then the rush, and then customers coming in and having to be at the register, so you were like all around. So I really started that at 14 till 17, and then he made me the dining room manager because I was also working the dining room. So we had a smoking area and a non-smoking area long before it was popular, and the booths in the back were the smoking area, and towards the front was the non-smoking area, and everybody wanted the smoking booths because they wanted to be able to still smoke. So those were the fastest turnovers. And I watched that over the years where people would be like, I want non-smoking. And so there were like really good sections of the restaurant where you could really turn over a table fast. The smokers would sit forever, maybe not tip as much, and the non-smokers would eat their food and get out. And you'd have another table. So it was a really busy turnover. And then I went and helped him open a restaurant on Monroe Avenue, which was more just like a little takeout, no dining room. My stepmother and I worked that one together, and then he opened one on Goodman Street, and I went to bartending school and became the bartender. So I had a lot of work. I went to Buffalo bartending school and learned how to make all the drinks and became the bartender, and then went back to a bigger restaurant which had a huge amount of tables, and we did a full menu: wine, beer, but not a bar. We didn't have a bar there, and I was a server. So during that time, I went back to school I had gone through my divorce, and I had 2 children, and I went back to school to become a social worker. So my undergraduate work was social work, got my BSW, and my first year of my master's. And then I got sick. Somewhere between going to college, and I was still trying to keep my job at my dad's, so he had rearranged my schedule. So instead of going in from 4 to 12, I was getting there at like 5:30. I would get out of my internship at 4:30 at the county, because I was working as a examiner and also working with pregnant teenagers and their families, and adult protective and child protective preventive. So that was my internship. So I had to do house visits. I was driving a lot. I was doing process notes, interviewing people, assessing people, and getting them the resources in the community that they could have, and letting them know if they were eligible for our services. And by the time they were 21 years old, we had to close off their case. They usually got pregnant again, and we would move them on to another situation. During that time, for my dissertation, my dissertation was on, and it was very cutting edge because nobody was talking about it, was how how prenatal influences affect personality development with children. And so I really dug deep into the spiritual and the scientific and blended it, because I really, before all the functional medicine and spiritual came out, I knew that there was a marriaging of the two that had to happen. And so I did get into a lot of Louise LaHaye, a lot of spiritual looks at all of it, really. How a baby can pick up on their mother's voice, their father's voice, what you do during your pregnancy, what personality traits come from the being in the womb, and how personality starts to develop in the womb. It really does. So I won't get into all of that now. You can go do your own research on that, but that was my main dissertation. And then I had to do a special project for caseworkers to get into the master program, and I developed the first sudden infant death SIDS hotline here in Rochester, New York, which caused me to have to work with the medical examiner's office here and go in and actually look at babies that died of SIDS. And at the time, they were taking babies away from mothers and fathers that babies died of SIDS. And what I saw in my work with pregnant women was that they were immediately getting pregnant again and naming their child the same name as the child that died. So that got me interested in grief work And then I got sick, ended up in the hospital. And I just will never believe this. I just want everyone that's struggling to understand you will have your moment, and look for the bright lights, and don't be afraid to be vulnerable and share your story. Back then, I went into the hospital in 1989. I was in there for 6 weeks, and I was diagnosed with what was called multiple personality in 1986. It really didn't get in the way of school, work. Most of my family and friends thought, this is ridiculous. You're consistently consistent. But I knew I was having blips of memory. I won't call it lost time or amnesia. I will call it time that was racing. I was doing too much. Later on, I found out that I probably had a different way that I attenuated as a child from trauma. I became very observant, over vigilant. I always took in everything, the temperature of the room. I always was a people pleaser. I never felt like I was enough. I always knew what to say to each person to keep them calm. So as a social worker, I took a lot of stuff home. Also, an internship I did was working with children that were identified in a Catholic school through Catholic Family Center who had high risk possibilities for they had behavioral problems. And I took that job in 1992. So I was literally working 3 jobs and continuing my college and then coming home. So my kids had lots of babysitters. Lots. And I was just working to pay the babysitters. And I would say if I had any regret, I would have just slowed it down and started going part-time to everything. I was in this rush to always grow up, always get a car, always have multiple streams of income so that I could be independent, because I grew up with women that were, I saw under the oppression of men, like men were caring for them. And my really my very first role model was a social worker who, my mother had been in the hospital for a long time, and she was assigned a social worker when she got out, and she was going through a separation and a divorce with my father. And I remember this social worker came along and really encouraged my mother that she could do anything she put her mind to. And instead of seeing my mother home in bed or beaten and bloodied, trigger warning, my dad and her were very volatile. Instead of seeing her medicating that and needing my grandmother to come take care of us, and us kids being shuffled from aunts and uncles' houses all the time, instead of that, I saw my mother getting up very structured. After she got out of the hospital, she would get up at 5 in the morning and head for the bus and go to work at Sibley's. And she was good with accounting, money, business. She was incredible. So she could pinch a penny from here to forever, but she lived on layaway. She believed in that. So I had this kind of thought that I wanted to be like Miss Corinne. Her name was Miss Corinne, and she would come to the house and she would say, "Now, Cecilia," that was my mother's name, you can do this, and we can find you a budget for clothes, and the bus is right there, and you can walk there. And I would walk and meet her at the bus, and I was probably 9.5, 10 years old at that point. Then my uncle had this big construction company. My mother went to work there. So I was really encouraged by that for quite a few years. She worked really well, and then she got sick. She was also diabetic and had some health issues. So, all that said, I had a lot of different things I wanted to do. My stepmother was a hairdresser, and I always was cutting my hair and styling it, and so she encouraged me to go to hairdressing school. And I really just had to drop out of that because the chemicals drove me nuts. Just the smell all day. I would get migraines, and my hands would shave bad from bad. It was the time period of perms, and perms were all the rage. Like kinky little perms. Everyone was always getting perms. Everyone was always coloring their hair 50 million colors. So it was a lot of product. So me and my allergies was not going to work for that. So being out of work for 30 years really made me sick. Why I went out of work was I was diagnosed with meningitis, and I had radiculoneuropathy, and it affected my left leg. My ankle wouldn't lift, so I was in a leg brace, 2 leg braces that eventually 2, because the one was making it crooked, and they were the big ugly braces that you had to unlock them, and it was hard. And then a wheelchair, and then I had to self-cath because my bladder did not work. It took out the left side of my body. So there was a lot of physical therapy, a lot of recovery, and then lo and behold, I kept getting it. It was viral meningitis, and I was so run down that I got it like 4 times in a row. And the 3rd time I got it, the person that was doing the spinal tap was a resident who was having to finish his rotation and do a spinal tap. And I already knew there was a sweet spot between my L3 and my L5 that you go into to do the spinal tap, but the position they were putting me in was making me crooked because I had a curvature of the spine. So I was already to the point where I'd had so many spinal taps, I knew I could sit up on the table and lean over, and I knew exactly where the spot was. You could mark it. And this guy just wasn't going to listen to me. He was like, no, I have to put you on your side, and you have to. And I ended up having a spinal cord bleed. So that just kept bleeding. And I remember having to lay flat on the floor on my father and stepmother's home. And my kids walking around me, like the doctor said, put her flat on the floor. And if it doesn't stop bleeding, like she can't get up at all. Like, just if she has to go to the bathroom, don't give her a lot to drink. Let her lay flat on the floor. As much as she can, she has to stay down. There I was on the wood floor. I could see the TV. My kids were running around me. I felt so bad. My stepmother would bring me a little lemon water, and then ask, do you need to go to the bathroom? And I would go back on the floor. And that was about 3 days before it stopped bleeding. So that did a lot of damage to my spinal cord. And then I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome. And at one point with the meningitis, the very head top notch of AIDS and HIV, at the time they just didn't know, because it was the 90s, coming out of the 80s into the 90s. And men were getting the kind of meningitis that I had. They were finding that kind of viral meningitis in herpetic meningitis, which was found a lot in HIV/AIDS. So I was being told, more than likely you don't have enough viral load to show it, but you do have HIV. So, all this stuff was just, it was the biggest clusterfuck in the world. Pardon my language. It was bad. And my kids were going through nurses being in the house. Eventually, my dad's moved his business. He just left. Him and his wife just left. I didn't know they were going to leave. It was just, he just up and left. And then my brother took over the business. And they went public. And so there was no more restaurant. I remember going to the restaurant and just seeing all the little ketchup bottles on the table and the little pumpkins that we had put out. I was like, are they really gone? Yeah, they're gone. They're gone. So it was a big loss for my children, who their nana and their papa was everything to them. That same year, my daughter and son lost their grandmother that was the most present in their life, which was my husband's mother. Just lots of loss all at once, lots of changes. And so my kids went to live with my cousins. And then I went into a grief mode where like it just wasn't good for them to be around all the sickness. And with the MPD, like I've said before, I was really scared of my own self. I didn't know what that meant. I certainly, as a social worker, knew this cannot be good for children to experience a different mother every day with names and stuff and what they do. And okay, so I've done videos on how I don't believe that model, that trauma model, is really true for everyone. I believe we are taught it, and iatrogenically we become it to get well. I think there's a very subtle dance that therapists do and clients do together. And I think if you keep going down rabbit holes to look for trauma, you can place a blame for everything and a meaning for everything that might not mean anything. 2 things can be true at once. 3 things can be true at once. And we can all experience it very differently. And so I just kept going to doctors. Like literally every 4 to 6 weeks, I went to my primary care doctor. And she prescribed pain medicine. That was outrageous amount of pain medicine, opiates, fentanyl. And that is because my pain tolerance kept going higher and higher. And I was just in chronic pain all the time. And I was, at that point, just smoking because my kids weren't even home. So I was just smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, staying up most of the night, sleeping during the day, and then going to doctor appointments. Somewhere between 2000 something, I would say 2006, 7, I started weaning myself off of medications on my own. And then by 2009, I went to my doctor and I said, on Labor Day weekend, I don't want this. And, everybody had these scary stories about going off of benzos, opioids, fentanyl. And I was like, I just went off of them. And she gave me a tapering off schedule that would have lasted 6 weeks. But I swear to God, I pulled the patch off my chest. I had one on my chest, one on my arm. I was up to a ridiculous amount. And I pulled them off, and that weekend went cold turkey, and God was just with me. And I also stopped Darvocet N100s and a drug called Transine and a drug called Soma. So I've got videos out there on how I did it, because I tapered down off of those, but the patches I just pulled off. And within a few weeks, they were no longer even making Darvocet N100. So I've always believed it was a God thing, that I felt like I just want to get off this stuff. That also caused me to drop 60 pounds. And I started exercising more and just being more active and being more clear-headed. And I started, my therapist, what I started doing, and I was going to therapy 2 to 3 times a week for years, sometimes days. and then going to my primary care doctor every 4 to 6 weeks for mostly medication and follow-up and blood work. I mean, I was a cash cow. Okay, so now I just really do the minimal. I have not been in I started weaning myself off of therapy and doing phone visits and just started not going. And my therapist said, I think you're wanting to close out. And we never did a proper closeout until around 2015. And it was very difficult going back after all those years. It brought up every emotion to walk into the office, every emotion just pulling up there. But he always said, I look at this as a graduation. So still on disability for many physical things and lots of triggers with trauma. I do have post-traumatic stress disorder. I integrated with the MPD, now called DID, and like I've always said, I don't know how that happened other than a determination, the same as the God thing of not wanting to be on the medications. Now I take one soma a day because I definitely have muscles that spasm in my, that's damaged that I need to take it for. One. And I only take one transient a day. I was taking 6 a day of each, 6 to 8 of each. And then I was on 175 MCQs of fentanyl patches. So that's all gone. That brought clarity. And, just learning how to manage pain, exercising. I was somebody that was really like always running in circles, working, but didn't know how to relax my body and stretch. And yoga really helped. Pilates with yoga and cardio is my go-to thing now. And isometrics, these little tiny isometric things, when you start turtling and become like, I lost 2 inches because I have compression fractures in my back, a thyroid condition, nodule that are no longer operable because they're just in places that would take out my voice and other things. I have tumors on my kidney lobes, and they would have to take my kidney out to actually get rid of them. They flare up and bleed. So I wasn't sure about going back to work because I knew that I flared up and bled with those tumors often, and it would land me in the hospital. And then a bunch of CAT scans, MRIs, ultrasounds, and biopsies, and then blood work. And so I was pretty much in the hospital about 3 times a year, every year, with just the kidneys flaring up. And in 2007, they came in and told me, you have cancer of the kidney and we need to remove it. And then by the next morning, they were like, oh no, it's not cancer. It's, we compared it wrong. Thank the Lord. So, I got a lot of things going on in my body. And so my thought was, I want to stay home and knit and crochet and make a small business doing that. But it wasn't working out because I'll tell you why. I had neighbors that smoked a lot. They smoked a lot of pot. They're underneath me. And everything rises. And every time I would buy yarn, I was going broke. I was buying yarn. Even though I covered it, it would smell of it. I would make these big, beautiful blankets. I would make all these beautiful things, and they would just stink. Until I was having to poof them and spray them and whatever, and I just was like, forget it. Just forget it. But now, our apartment complex has gone smoke-free. Within 3 months, the rollout is happening. Nobody can smoke cigarettes. Nobody can smoke weed, cigars, nothing. Their guests can't. You can't walk up to the door with it. You can't be on the property with it. People can't be standing around walking the property with their cigarettes or their pot. They can't even go in their car and smoke their stuff and then walk into the common hallways because it stinks up the hallways. So I have lived here 26 years and I have been waiting for that. So I'm staying here. But what I wanted to share with you guys is I went back to work, and I first worked in a bagel shop, and I worked there for 2 years, part-time, on disability, in what was called a trial of work. And that trial of work ended in September, which brought me into a extended work period for 36 months, where then you can make a certain amount of money each month gross pay and still keep your Medicare and your disability. So I'm 66 years old now, and I get calls all day for Medicare plans, and I need my health insurance. So I don't want to lose my disability. So I try to keep it at 20. They tell you to try to keep it at 20 hours. Depending on the pay rate you're making, you could probably go to, when you're in the SGA, you could probably go to 25 hours because you can't earn more than 1,620. Meanwhile, I was on Section 8 for housing, and the more money I made, the less they paid. And I'm very happy that I'm down to, like, they pay $100 on my rent, and I pay the rest of it. And I no longer wanted food stamps, and so I got off food stamps. So it's been less having to run to the government and say, I worked this, that, always worrying. So it fosters independence, makes you feel better, but you got to be honest with your employer and tell them when you're burning out, when you need some time. And I'm taking 4 days now. I have a really good district manager who realized I overworked for May, and the bagel shop that I was working at, I left in November. I went over to, November. I was still working there part-time, and I took a job at Dollar Tree right next door to it. And I love retail. I love organizing. I love seeing all the new stuff coming in. What I really like doing is the U-boats and stocking stuff, but you can't do that unless the store is recovered and everything is shelf space and condensed and where it should be. So they kind of dubbed me the Queen of Recovery at the one store. I'm at another store now, and we're trying a new system where we rotate, which is really good because I was running way too much. I'd run down one aisle and pick stuff up, and I'd have a cart full of stuff, and then have to go put that back, and then by the time I got to the next aisle, there'd be a cart full of stuff again. And then by the end of my 4 or 5 hour shift, I was being pressured to put away everything, while cashiers were just kind of leaning, looking at their phone, eating their food, going out on smoke breaks. I was like, no. So I spoke up. Speak up for yourself. Speak up. But my kids know that I want to, the hardest part for me has been walking to work in all kinds of weather, because I always get stuck in the rain, the wind, the snow, the ice. It used to be a hop, skip, and a jump because I had a shortcut, and I've done videos walking to work. It's really short. When I was working at the bagel shop, I was walking to work at 4:30 in the morning and baking at 5, getting out of there by 11, then going to work at the Dollar Tree by 5:30, then getting home at 11:30, then walking home, and I had a little shortcut. Our complex actually put up a fence to block it off because there are so many idiots that just keep taking the shopping carts from the plaza and bringing them all over here, and then the plaza is now charging the complex, which is going to raise our rent, but they keep doing it because now they go through a little park, and they still bring them over. So now I have to walk all the way around. That's more ice, snow, wind, rain to walk in. So I'm factoring all that in and my age and some very bad hip arthritis that I've got going on with a drop foot and scoliosis, and thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep walking all that way. So I am going to start doing knitting and crochet. And so for my birthday, I wanted to show you something that my kids got me. And it is called the Loomis Knitting Light. And I never heard of these, although I guess it's been all over the internet. I never heard of it. It says, happiness can be found even in the darkest of times if only one remembers to turn on the light, by Albus Dumbledore. And I thought, oh, I didn't even know what this is. I looked at it, I was like, ooh, what is this? It is so cool. If you knit, crochet, bead, anything, this is what it is. You put it around your neck. It works for all kinds of things. Reading at night, you get a light. You get 2 lights if you want it. You get a charger. There's a warm light and a cool light. And if you click it, that's the warm light. And if you hold it, it dims. If you click it again and you hold it, it dims. And it should go brighter. No, maybe it's not. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe I forgot the order. But there's clicks where you can make it go bright. And you can make it go back to cool. See if I can do this one. 2, 3. Yeah, it dims. So after 3 clicks, you can dim it. When you first turn it on, it goes brighter. You can go between warm and light, like a cool. You can turn it up. If you have any kind of sensory overload, tactile stimuli, ASD issues where you can't stand tags or friction or whatever, no worries. It is so light, smooth, you don't even feel it. You don't. And it's so darn flexible. I think the favorite position I've got for when I'm knitting at night now is like this. And you could crisscross it. You could... I couldn't believe how many stitches I was dropping and having to go back for. I usually had to leave my hall light on when I was knitting at night because I would get home at 11:30 and then knit till like 2 in the morning. And you know, once you get going on a project, you want to keep going. So this is really helpful because I can finish my Afghans that I started too long ago that aren't done. And I'm probably going to be doing little miniature versions of bigger things that I do. I'm going to be doing Christmas ornaments. It's got a little charger. It comes with charge, so you can start using it right away. But you need, this goes into here, but you need this to work. And I use a Halo charger that, this thing is awesome. I bought it at QVC like, I don't know, 7 years ago. I bought everyone in my family one. They're just amazing. Any size charger you need, you just put it in and charge it. And so I use that. And then it lasts a good 8 hours is my experience so far. And then you got to charge it again, and it charges up within, I'd say, if you get all the way to 8 hours, I'd say you need a good 45 minutes to charge it. Fantastic. One of the things at my job that I love doing is opening the boxes and putting stuff where it belongs. I don't think my managers know that yet. I think they're keeping me on recovery and cashiering. But I really do love to stock. And most of the stuff is not too heavy within my doctor limitations for me to stock, because I want to make sure stuff goes where it should go. And I'm really quick at putting stuff up. So one of the things that slowed me down, and they will give you task tests when you work in retail. They'll see how much you can lift, how many U-boats you can do within a 4-hour shift, how much of the store you can recover, all of it. How many sales you do, like if you have a sale for, like, the other night I had a sale for $142. That's 142 scans. And bagging and bagging and bagging. And sometimes it's $200-$300. And they will see how fast you can get people going through the line, what your general sale is. So they'll put you where they think you shine and do well. Be sure to not stay in any one position if you're going back from disability and you've got repetitive injuries like fibromyalgia and you need a couple days of rest. One of the problems I had when I was doing the bagel shop and the Dollar Tree, and it's so flippin' weird, February 15th, that Dollar Tree and the bagel shop burned down, and a speedy cleaner that was right in the plaza. So I was really blessed that my district manager reassigned me to another location that I could get to on a bus. And I've been there, but we're going to reopen in June, and I'm really excited about it at our location. But at this particular store, I can never find a box cutter. A key just didn't work for me. Where I have trouble sometimes is in my arthritic hands, and I needed a box cutter. And those little yellow plastic ones were always like gone. Somebody, I don't know what people were doing with them, but we didn't have any. I was always trying to use scissors, and then part of stocking is you're breaking down your boxes, and I would take more time breaking down the boxes than putting the stuff up. Once I got the box open, boom, 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 done. Get out of my way, right? But I always going in search for scissors, keychain, this, that, the other. So I finally decided some of the ladies were going around with their little pink box cutters and their red box cutters, and I thought, I'm going to buy myself a little birthday gift to help me. And so I bought, this is called a Fantastic Car, and I bought a purple one, of course. Of course, purple. And they're really easy to use. It's just a box cutter. You just press the button and you pull this out till it clicks, and then you've got a safety feature here, and there you go. And it actually is more than those retractable little yellow ones. You've got more cutting space, which is a very good thing. I always have trouble getting the safety latch on it, so I don't really use that at work. But then you just press the button and click it down. It also has this really cool clip that you could just put on your work pants. So, and it comes with 4 blades, which I doubt I'm ever really going to go through, but it's nice to have. $14. Not bad. Not bad. And then the other one I bought, because in case I lose one, is this one. And it's got purple little hearts on it. Look at that, you guys. Hearts. Okay. So, now I feel equipped. When I go to do recovery in Dollar Tree, I bring tags with me and tape and a garbage bag on my cart, and I'm doing things differently. I'm seeing where, I can work smarter, not harder. And I tend to stop and try to fix everything every aisle I go in, and I get over focused and start looking how I want to display it, how to make more space, and I keep going. And so one of the managers told me maybe if you just, well, see, they have a recovery person there, but what they do is they just tell her, we want you to go recover. She comes in 2 days a week. We want you to recover the party aisle, or we want you to recover the stationery aisle and the craft aisle. And that's more my thing. Like, you're totally resetting it, so you're in one aisle. But what I've been getting for the past 4 months is recover the store. Like, go recover the store. And you can't just go recover every aisle without having a cart left over at the end of 4 or 5 hours for people to put away in the morning, especially Mother's Day, Easter. It was a zoo in there, and I've worked every holiday since I started last July, and this is the first holiday I haven't. So my district manager saw that I needed some time, and I thank the Lord that he gave me some time off. So I'm gonna knit, reset my apartment, get organized here for spring, summer clothing, and organize, and rest, spend some time with Justin, my cat. But I just want to tell you guys, if you're returning to work on disability, be careful of the 5-week months, because you will get 5 paychecks, and if they're going by your gross pay, and they are, you have to stay within a certain limit, and that 5th check will bring you over if you are working 20 to 25 hours. So be mindful of that. Even if you get paid bi-weekly, you'll get 3 checks in May, 3 in, I think it's October or November or August. Be leery of that. Be in contact with your person that makes the schedule. Don't punch in early. Don't stay late. Don't. It adds up. And if you need your Medicare or you need your disability money, they can take it away if you go over. So stay within your limit. I'm in a good position because I'm 66 now. That 36 month, if I go over, I might lose a check, but it will roll over into my retirement check, and then I have no worries about that. So I'm just playing it by ear every day, which is all we can do. But I wanted to say Happy Memorial Day and share with you guys that it is possible to go back to work at any age and to find your niche. And even in all the jobs you do, and I was thinking about this the other day, there were so many jobs I didn't remember that I did. I worked at Perkins Cake and Steak. I worked at Casablanca. I like a place that had belly dancing, and I was a cocktail waitress and a server for dinner. And I worked at Parkley Pharmacy when I was like 19. I lived on Park Avenue, and there was this pharmacy that it was like a boutique. Everything was really tiny. So I remember having to always make space and put stuff up. And it's just funny how sometimes you can forget all the life experience you have that you could put on a resume, that you can use in an interview. And I just kind of was like, well, I worked for my dad at Captain Tony's Pizza, and I worked as a social worker at the county and Catholic Family Center. Really go through every single thing you do at a job that would make you employable. Okay, so have a good day. If you're a knitter, crocheter, beater, macrame, reader, anything, this thing is fantastic. They run between $129 and $169, but they're worth it. Okay? And if you have trouble pulling boxes apart, get yourself a box cutter, and these are probably the most economic and really nice if you want to personalize them. And I did. All right, that's my video. I'm going to go do my stretches. I need to stretch. When we finally get back to our own location, I'm I'm going to miss being able to bop into the Rainbow and Marshalls and grab a little something, something. And anyways, so I want to encourage people to look at the ability in disabled. Look at your ableness. And also say, get your vitamin D every day. And water. Hydrate. Take care. Have a very blessed beginning of a summer, Memorial Day. And be sure to remember all those loved ones who served in the military. I'm remembering my dad today and my ex-brother-in-law and just people that I know that really served and served our country well. Take care. Bye-bye.